Girl helps Keanu Reeves to find his lost wallet. Next day, she gets news that changed her life. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories, or please complete our 1,000 subscribers. Sophie, a young and ambitious freelance graphic designer, was taking her usual morning jog through the streets of downtown Los Angeles. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft, golden hue across the city. As she rounded the corner near a busy cafe, she noticed a man frantically patting his pockets. He looked out of place in the hustle and bustle of the morning rush, his face an expression of mild panic. It was Keanu Reeves. Sophie had always been a fan of Keanu's work, but like most people, she never expected to encounter a Hollywood legend in the middle of a normal morning. Noticing his frustration, Sophie approached cautiously, offering a gentle, "Excuse me, sir, is everything okay?" Keanu looked at her, his face relaxed but still searching for something. "I seem to have lost my wallet," he said with a sheepish smile. "I'm not sure where I dropped it." Sophie felt a surge of compassion. Without hesitation, she offered to help. Together, they retraced his steps, searching the nearby street corners and scanning the ground for any sign of the missing wallet. Sophie stayed calm, assuring Keanu it was no trouble at all. After a few minutes of searching, Sophie spotted it. A small black wallet wedged between two parked cars. Keanu's eyes lit up with relief. "Thank you," he said, smiling warmly. Sophie handed him the wallet, but as she turned to leave, Keanu stopped her. "I owe you one," he added, a wink playing on his lips. Sophie felt her heart race but smiled and waved him off. Little did she know that small gesture would set her life on a whole new path. The next morning, Sophie awoke to the sound of her phone buzzing on her nightstand. She groggily reached for it, squinting at the screen. A number she didn't recognize was flashing on the display. She hesitated before answering, thinking it was just another sales call. "Hello?" she answered, her voice still thick with sleep. "Sophie?" The voice on the other end was deep and unmistakably familiar. It took a moment for her to register, but then the realization hit her like a ton of bricks. "This is Keanu Reeves," the voice continued. Sophie's heart nearly stopped. "I hope you remember me from yesterday. You helped me find my wallet. I wanted to thank you again and see if you're available to talk about something important." Sophie's mind raced and her hand trembled as she clutched the phone to her ear. "Of course, Mr. Reeves. I remember you. How can I help?" She couldn't believe this was happening. Was this some kind of prank? "Well, I wanted to ask if you would be interested in joining a startup that's about to go public," Keanu continued. "It's a tech company, and I think your skills could be an asset. A mutual friend of ours recommended you. Are you open to a meeting?" Sophie's mind spun. She barely knew anyone in the tech world, but somehow Keanu Reeves was calling her to offer a chance of a lifetime. I'm honored. Yes. I'd love to hear more." The following afternoon, Sophie found herself in a modern, sleek office building in the heart of Silicon Valley. The conference room she was led to was vast, filled with glass walls and stunning views of the city skyline. A round table sat in the center, surrounded by some of the most influential people in the tech world. Sophie felt completely out of her depth. Keanu greeted her warmly when she entered, and the two exchanged pleasantries before he introduced her to the team. "Sophie, I'd like you to meet our CEO, Adam Foster, and the rest of the board," he said. Adam was a tall, well-groomed man in his late 40s with a sharp, analytical gaze. The group seemed a bit intimidating. But Keanu's presence was calming. Keanu started to explain the purpose of the meeting. "We're launching a revolutionary platform for digital creatives, and we believe Sophie's talents as a graphic designer and marketer would be invaluable to the launch." Sophie felt a rush of excitement mixed with a pinch of doubt. She had never worked in tech before, let alone on a major product launch. But Keanu's confidence in her was infectious, and before she knew it, she was nodding enthusiastically. The presentation lasted for almost an hour, and Sophie's mind raced with ideas. The concept of the platform was groundbreaking, and she could see how her skills could complement the project. But the real kicker came when Adam offered her a formal position. "We want you on board as a senior creative strategist. You'll have creative control over the user experience design for the app. We'll also offer you equity in the company as part of your compensation." Sophie couldn't believe what she was hearing. From a simple act of kindness to sitting in a boardroom with some of the brightest minds in tech, She was about to take her career to places she never imagined. After the meeting, Sophie walked out of the building feeling like she was in a dream. She couldn't believe the offer that had been made to her. A senior creative strategist at a tech startup going public. This was the kind of opportunity people only dreamed of. But her mind kept circling back to one thing. Was she ready for this? She had no formal tech experience, and the thought of stepping into such a high-profile role was both exhilarating and terrifying. That evening, Sophie sat at her kitchen table, poring over the details of the offer. She kept playing the conversation in her head. Keanu had seemed so sure of her abilities, and Adam's pitch had been compelling. But the pressure of the role was immense. Could she really handle it? Could she thrive in an environment where the stakes were so high? As she sipped her tea, Sophie thought about how she had always loved challenges, how she had thrived in moments of doubt. She remembered the small, humble moment of helping Keanu Reeves find his wallet. It had seemed insignificant at the time, but it had led her here. Maybe this was her chance to prove she could take on something bigger. She took a deep breath, her decision clear. She was going to do it. The next few days were a whirlwind. Sophie officially accepted the offer and began preparing to join the team. Her life, which had once been a simple routine of freelance work and creative projects, was about to change dramatically. She would be joining a company that was on the brink of becoming a household name, and her role would put her at the forefront of the digital creative revolution. She spent the days leading up to her first day at the company reviewing the startup's vision and values. She also dove deep into the platform's design, making notes of how she could improve the user interface and enhance the experience for both beginners and professionals. The pressure was mounting, but Sophie felt a strange sense of excitement. On her first day, Sophie walked into the office, her heart pounding in her chest. She was introduced to her new team, a group of brilliant designers, developers, and marketers who had all been handpicked for their expertise. It was a lot to take in, but Keanu was there, as friendly and supportive as ever. "We're glad to have you here," Keanu said with a smile. "The team is counting on you to bring your vision to life. Let's make something amazing together." Sophie smiled back, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. This was her moment. She had made the right choice. Sophie's first week was intense. She was thrown into the deep end, tasked with designing the user experience for the platform's main interface. The stakes were high, and the team was counting on her to deliver. She spent long hours in the office, collaborating with developers and designers, refining every aspect of the app's layout. The work was challenging, but Sophie loved every moment of it. She had never felt so alive in her career. The team was incredibly talented, and their passion was contagious. Sophie found herself pushing her boundaries, coming up with innovative ideas that she never would have imagined on her own. She was grateful for the trust Keanu and Adam had placed in her. As the days passed, Sophie began to see the impact of her work. The app was starting to take shape, and her designs were bringing it to life. She felt a sense of pride in what she was helping to create, and the feedback from the team was overwhelmingly positive. But there was always the nagging thought in the back of her mind. Could she keep up with the pace? Could she live up to the expectations? The pressure was mounting, but Sophie was determined to prove herself. Every day, she poured more of herself into the project, driven by the belief that this was the opportunity of a lifetime. As weeks passed, Sophie's workload intensified. The tech startup's launch was fast approaching, and with it came mounting pressure to get everything perfect. The team was working round the clock, and Sophie, now deeply embedded in the design and strategy process, felt the weight of their expectations on her shoulders. Her role had expanded beyond the user interface design. Now, she was managing the creative direction of the entire platform, from the logo design to the onboarding flow. It was a lot to juggle, and Sophie found herself spending late nights in the office. The caffeine-fueled days blurred together. Despite the overwhelming pace, she couldn't ignore the excitement that came with it. Every new feature, every design iteration felt like she was contributing to something revolutionary. However, the pressure was starting to take its toll. Sophie found herself exhausted and second-guessing her decisions. The team was starting to rely on her more and more, and the thought of letting them down weighed heavily on her mind. One afternoon, as she looked at her laptop screen, her vision started to blur. She hadn't had a proper night's sleep in days. Her thoughts were clouded with doubt. Keanu noticed Sophie's fatigue. He pulled her aside after a meeting one day, his voice calm and reassuring. "I know it's a lot, Sophie, but you're doing great. Don't forget to take a break when you need to. The work will always be here. Your health is what matters most." His words, simple as they were, grounded her. Sophie smiled, appreciating the kindness he always offered. She promised herself she would slow down, even if just for a moment. Despite Keanu's encouragement, Sophie's doubts continued to plague her. She had always been a self-starter, working alone as a freelancer, but now she was part of something bigger, something that would impact thousands, maybe millions of users. The company was about to go public, and with it, her responsibility. One night, as Sophie reviewed the final prototype of the app, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Was it too bold? Too avant-garde for mainstream users? She glanced around the room. Everyone else seemed confident, but Sophie couldn't help but feel like an outsider, someone who didn't quite belong in this high-stakes environment. She stared at the logo design for what felt like an eternity, wondering if she had overcomplicated things. The next day, Keanu invited Sophie to a lunch meeting. They sat at a small cafe near the office, sipping iced teas and talking about the project. "I can see you're stressed," Keanu said softly, cutting through the silence. "It's okay to feel that way, but remember why you're here. You're here because you have a vision, a talent that no one else can replicate. Trust that vision, Sophie." Sophie nodded slowly, but doubt still lingered. She couldn't quite shake the nagging feeling that she wasn't enough, that maybe her creativity was too unconventional for the polished corporate world she had suddenly found herself in. Keanu could tell something was weighing on her. "You'll get through this," he said, his voice steady. "You're here because you belong here." By the time the launch date was fast approaching, Sophie had worked tirelessly to refine every aspect of the platform. The creative direction was finalized, the user interface was polished, and the brand's identity was set. Despite the pressure and self-doubt, Sophie had pushed through, designing something she was ultimately proud of. She felt as if her hard work was about to pay off, but her insecurities were still lingering. On the eve of the company's launch, Sophie sat alone in the office late at night, reviewing the final version of the app. It was perfect, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something intangible that would make the product feel truly groundbreaking. Just then, Keanu walked into the office, noticing Sophie deep in thought. "You've been at this for hours," he remarked with a grin. Sophie looked up, surprised to see him. "I'm just trying to make sure everything's perfect," she said, her voice laced with exhaustion. Keanu leaned against the doorframe, his expression serious but kind. "Sophie, the perfection is in the imperfections. It's your authenticity, your creativity, that's going to make this platform stand out. You don't need to worry about being flawless." Something in his words clicked. Sophie had been so focused on making everything technically perfect that she had overlooked the importance of embracing her own style, her own imperfections. She took a deep breath, closed her laptop, and decided to trust her instincts. The app didn't need to be perfect, it just needed to be real. The big day arrived faster than Sophie had anticipated. The office was buzzing with excitement as the final preparations for the company's launch were underway. Everyone was on edge, checking final details, going through last-minute meetings, and making sure everything was set for the app's unveiling. Sophie, though anxious, felt a surge of pride as she watched her designs come to life. Keanu was there, as always, offering his support and encouragement. "You've done amazing work, Sophie," he said, his smile genuine. "This is going to change the game." Sophie gave him a nervous smile. She couldn't help but feel like everything was riding on this moment. The countdown began. As the seconds ticked away, Sophie sat at her desk, her heart racing. She had worked so hard for this moment, but nothing could prepare her for the anticipation of watching the app go live. The team gathered in the conference room, waiting for the announcement. Keanu stood beside her, a calming presence in the storm of excitement. Finally, the moment came. Adam, the CEO, stood before the team and pressed the button to officially launch the app. The digital clock on the wall ticked over to the moment of launch, and Sophie could hear the collective breath of the team as the app went live. The feedback was instant. Within moments, users flooded the platform, leaving positive reviews, excited about the unique user interface and the platform's sleek design. Sophie could hardly believe her eyes as the numbers climbed. The app was a success, and it was only the beginning. As the weeks passed, the tech startup's platform began to gain significant traction. The user base grew exponentially, and Sophie couldn't believe how fast things were moving. Her role had expanded, and she was now overseeing the next phase of development, which included refining the app for global markets. Despite the intense work, Sophie felt more fulfilled than ever. Keanu continued to be a guiding force. He often checked in with her, offering advice and encouragement when the pressure began to mount. One day, after a particularly long meeting with the development team, Keanu pulled Sophie aside. "You've really grown into your role," he said, his voice full of admiration. "When I first met you, I had no idea how much you were capable of. You've more than exceeded my expectations." Sophie blushed at the compliment, but couldn't deny that she had come a long way. She had started out as a graphic designer with big dreams, but no clear path. And now, she was shaping the future of a groundbreaking tech platform. The work wasn't easy, but the rewards were immeasurable. She had built something with her own two hands, and it was making a real impact. Yet the journey was far from over. There were more challenges ahead, more obstacles to overcome, but Sophie had learned to trust herself and the team she had become a part of. She knew the future was bright. As the company's stock soared following the launch, Sophie's role within the team became even more pivotal. She was no longer just a designer. She was an integral part of the creative vision that was taking the company global. One afternoon, as she was reviewing data on her laptop, Adam, the CEO, approached her with a serious expression. "Sophie," he began, his tone more formal than usual, "we've been extremely pleased with your contributions. As the company grows, we want to ensure that our creative direction remains in line with our core values. To that end, we're offering you a partnership stake in the company. We believe you're an invaluable asset, and we want you to have a bigger voice moving forward." Sophie's heart skipped a beat. A partnership stake? This was the kind of opportunity she had only dreamed of. She had worked hard to get to this point, but even she hadn't expected such an offer. She felt a surge of pride and gratitude, knowing that all her hard work had led her to this moment. It was a testament to everything she had achieved. Adam continued, "We know you're the creative heart of this company. We want you to help steer its future. Will you accept?" Sophie took a moment to absorb what was happening. She had been thrust into a world she never could have imagined, and now she was being offered a permanent seat at the table. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady with determination. "I'm in." As Sophie's influence within the company grew, so did the impact of the platform. The startup that had once been a small idea in a few people's minds was now a thriving tech giant with users from across the globe. Sophie continued to push boundaries with her creative vision, and the company adapted, grew, and thrived. Keanu remained by her side, not just as a mentor, but as a trusted friend who had helped her navigate the ups and downs of the business world. They shared long conversations about life, success, and the challenges of balancing personal and professional growth. Sophie found herself growing more confident with each passing day, knowing that her vision was shaping the future of an entire industry. Despite the success, Sophie never lost sight of what had started it all, a simple, kind gesture of helping someone find their lost wallet. She often thought back to that moment when she had stumbled across Keanu in the street, feeling unsure of her place in the world. Now, she was a key player in a global tech company, her dreams and aspirations more alive than ever. One afternoon, while sipping coffee with Keanu in a quiet cafe, Sophie finally reflected on how far she had come. "I still can't believe all of this started with that one decision," she said, a smile playing at her lips. "Helping you with your wallet? It feels like a lifetime ago." Keanu chuckled, his eyes warm. "It's amazing what one small act of kindness can lead to. I think that's what life is all about. Those moments where you choose to do something good without expecting anything in return. It's those moments that change everything." Sophie nodded, feeling deeply thankful for the serendipity of it all. "I'm lucky it was you I helped." Keanu smiled, his voice sincere. "I think it was the universe's way of showing you that you were meant for this." With the startup's success solidified, the company began to turn its focus toward global expansion. The platform, which had initially been designed for American users, was now being adapted to cater to international markets. Sophie was at the forefront of this effort, leading the design and customization of the app for different cultural demographics. The company had already established a strong foothold in Europe, and now they were targeting Asia and Latin America. Sophie worked closely with localization experts to ensure that the app's interface was culturally relevant and user-friendly for each new market. It was a massive undertaking, but Sophie relished the challenge. One of the most rewarding aspects of this phase was traveling to these countries to meet with local teams and gather feedback from users. Sophie visited Japan, Brazil, and India, learning about the diverse ways people interacted with technology. The insights she gained helped shape the final version of the app for these new markets. As the app rolled out in these regions, Sophie couldn't help but feel immense pride in her work. She had helped build something that was now connecting people across the world, breaking down language barriers, and creating new opportunities for users everywhere. The world felt smaller, and the impact of her efforts had never been more real. Keanu, who had always believed in Sophie's potential, was there with her every step of the way. They celebrated together when the company successfully launched in Asia, and Sophie knew that this was only the beginning. Her vision, combined with the talent and resources of her team, was changing the way the world interacted with technology. It felt surreal, but it was happening. As the tech startup went public and became a multi-billion-dollar company, Sophie had achieved what most people only dreamed of. She had not only helped build something groundbreaking, but she had also cultivated a legacy that would outlast her time at the company. The stock prices soared, and Sophie's stake in the company had made her financially secure for life. But for her, the true reward wasn't the wealth. It was the impact she had made. She had always wanted to create something meaningful, something that would leave a lasting mark on the world, and she had done just that. Now Sophie had the freedom to pursue new ventures. The company was thriving without her day-to-day involvement, and she had the opportunity to explore other passions. She decided to invest in social causes that resonated with her, particularly education and tech accessibility for underserved communities. She wanted to ensure that the same opportunities she had received were available to others who dreamed of building a future in the tech world. Keanu continued to be a close friend, offering wisdom and guidance as Sophie embarked on new journeys. One afternoon, while walking through a park near the office, Keanu asked her, "What's next for you?" Sophie thought for a moment before answering. "I want to create a foundation, something that helps young people find their voices in tech, to give them a shot at creating the future just like I did." Keanu smiled, proud of her vision. "I think that's the next big thing for you. You've always had the ability to change the world." Sophie was no longer just the girl who helped Keanu find his wallet. She was a woman with a purpose, a leader in the tech industry, and someone who was shaping the future in more ways than one. She was ready for whatever came next, and she knew that her journey was only just beginning. The end of one chapter marked the beginning of another, and Sophie embraced it with open arms, knowing that her story was far from over.